With events unfolding fast, German Governor Schnee was unable to adhere to the Berlin Act of 1885. German raids were being set, forces mobilized, and blood already shed. German Governor Schnee began to give his consent to Vorbeck's already issued orders. One officer who was waiting was Hauptmann Baumstark, commanding a recruitment camp. This camp, since the beginning of hostilities, had raised 4 additional Schutztrupp Feld companies, drawn from the mostly police askari across the colony, and 2 Schützenkompanie of German European volunteers. Vorbeck had ordered Hauptmann Baumstark to take a column to invade British East Africa and destroy Mombasa on the 20th of August. Prior to hostilities, Hauptmann Baumstark had been part of the Schutztrupp, but he had been the commanding officer of the principal recruitment depot at Dar es Salaam, a desk job. The column he had commanded had been of former police askari folded into the Schutztrupp on the outbreak of hostilities. Unlike other officers, Hauptmann Baumstark had waited for the governor's consent to begin hostilities, but once blessed by Governor Schnee, he would carry out a forced march over Pugu to Usambara. The column was made up of the 15th, 16th, and 17th Feld Company of the Schutztrupp. Officially raised as the No. 2 Reserve Company of the 3rd King's African Rifles Arabs, the unit was more commonly referred to as Wavell's Arab Rifles, raised by A.J.B. Wavell. He had himself already had a colorful career that would define most of the participants of the East African campaign. Wavell had served in the British Army as a lieutenant in the Welsh Regiment. Wavell had made a pilgrimage to Mecca, disguised as a Zanzibarbarian and imprisoned by the Turks in Yemen. He retired to Mombasa and penned his autobiography, A Modern Pilgrimage to Mecca. In Mombasa, he held high regard in the Muslim population in Mombasa. At the outbreak of war, he was able to raise a force of around 300 men, mainly of Swahilis from 3 locations, the bazaars at Malindi and Lamu, and also from the Mombasa jail. These freshly raised troops were armed with, and even then antique, Martini Henrys, modified to be chambered with the then modern .303 rifle cartridge. Their first assignment was to defend Mombasa alongside ex-King's African Rifle servicemen forming the No. 1 Reserve Company. Although lacking in quantity and quality, this force was never challenged in those opening days. To the south of Mombasa was a network of motor vehicle-sized roads from Mombasa to Gazi, and a simple walking path from Gazi to Venga. Venga lay on the south bank of the Umba River, and consisted of a dock, customs house, and other buildings. At Venga, at the outbreak of war, District Commissioner Ainsworth Dixon put his customs house into a state of defense, much like that of La Fontaine's customs house in Taveta. Dixon also made use of intelligence reports and watching German movements. He was aided in this effort by the local Zanzibar-appointed governor, Liwali bin Ali. He was also loyal to the British and was critical in organizing the Muslim population to aid the British for the duration of the war, just as well as documents and reports were circulating the various Muslim population that the British had lost Taveta and that they should rise up against the British. Hauptmann Baumstark, not taking the same steps as Dixon, failed to use his numerical superiority to dominate his opponent, instead raising a new camp at Kibirul and sending token defense forces to the German-bordered village of Jazan. This buildup was being watched by the British and reported back to Mombasa. Dixon thought this concentration of hundreds of trained German askaris so close to his post was a prelude to invasion, like that found at Taveta. Reporting this to Nairobi, Colonel Ward wanted to reinforce the area with the newly raised units in Mombasa, so the Germans wouldn't be able to assault or sabotage the vital Mombasa port. Dispatching the No. 1 Reserve Company from Mombasa and the Zanzibar garrison from Zanzibar on the 21st of August via the sea were routed to Venga. Arriving, they deployed and waited for the German invasion, which never materialized, as the Germans were busy building their camp. The next day, the Zanzibar garrison redeployed to Zanzibar. Sources don't say, But at some point, the number 1 reserve company was replaced by the number 2 reserve company, Wavell's Arabs. Marching from Mombasa to Venga, arriving on the same day that Dixon reported again alarm after his police askari watched an additional German patrol arriving to Jansen. In reality, it was a patrol to relieve that day's defenders at Jansen. Nonetheless, Wavell and the other officers found Venga simply too far and reliant on naval redeployment. Further, having just marched overland, the distance was compounded by the town being on the south side of a river. Should the town be put to siege, it would be difficult to relieve the defenders. One source reminds the readers that being so close to so many water features, mosquitoes and malaria would also be obstacles to defense. Dixon and his staff were to relocate to the north, away from the water feature choke points, but still in the district. The Zanzibar garrison would again return to Zanzibar. As all this got underway, Wavell and his Arabs on the 30th of August invaded German East Africa. First moving on Jansen to deal with the supposed German buildup, a quick volley from their antique Martini Henrys put the German patrol based at the village to flee. Seeing such a smaller force scatter, Wavell took his men to Kibiru. There, the Germans had taken up defense and prepared to finally endure the coming British invasion. Wavell instead used his machine guns to make a demonstration against the numerically superior Germans. Having rattled the Germans, Wavell was able to withdraw back to Venga, where, that evening, he organized the last of the evacuation before withdrawing to Majoni. On the 30th of August, Hauptmann Baumstark, having endured the British invasion and being rattled, went to Venga. Finding the village deserted of all life and stores, he ordered the British Customs House and the Zanzibari Liwali's home blown up. Then he returned to Kibiru, where he was reinforced with 2 newly raised units. 4th Schützen Company, German settler volunteer soldiers, and the German Arab Corps. The German Arab Corps, in contrast to Wavell's Arab Rifles, was headed up by the son of a British exiled slave trader, Sibi bin Imbark. This German Arab Corps was only 50 members in this early stage, but would grow from an initial size of 50 to 400 members, twice the size of a pre-war German askari company. This force was noted for its command harboring strange romantic practices with younger males. It would also take Hauptmann Baumstark another 2 weeks till he discovered the Venga inhabitants had relocated to Majoni. Despite Vorbeck calling his officers to make bold attacks into British East Africa from headquarters in Numashi, and British authors painting Mombasa defenseless to his assaults, in the field it was much more complex. Hauptmann Baumstark didn't see the value in charging at Mombasa through mosquito-infested water features to be cut off by the British Royal Navy, or worse, leaving Tanga completely vulnerable. That, and he still didn't know the British strength. What his men had endured had caused them to scatter or hunker down. Until something fortuitous changed, he made the correct call to wait. Do you agree with Vorbeck? Or do you agree with Hauptmann Baumstark? Leave a comment below, and we'll see you in the next episode.